Okay, we are tracking Hurricane Dorian, and this is just going to dominate. It's going to dominate all the national news. That's all they're going to be talking about on ABC News tonight with David Muir, as we should be, because this is a big one. This is going to have a lot of issues coming up here. There's going to be a lot of quote-unquote uncertainty about where landfall is, and I think a lot of that talk is helpful to try and prepare the public for changes that are going to happen, but also it's not helpful because we focus too much on the eye wall. So we're going to take you through step by step what we're looking at, the risks, the concerns, and basically just a whole wrap up on Hurricane Dorian. So here we are. This is what it looks like on satellite. Now, even though the green starts to disappear here, it doesn't mean that it's not raining. We have satellites or radar stations here on Puerto Rico. Also, there's some radar sites in the Dominican Republic and also for some of the Caribbean islands. But as it pulls away, the radar just can't see it anymore. So we focus more on satellites. So as you can see here, it looks okay. It doesn't really look that bad because it pulled in some dry air in the backside here. So it's kind of going through one of these cycles where it weakens a little bit. That will all get parsed out and then it's going to intensify. So our concern at this point is that what we know about this area right in here is that this is some of the warmest water in the world. This is high octane fuel for intensification. Here's the other deal. We look at this little cold front here that's kind of nudging it off to the north, but once this moves through, there's nothing coming in to really steer it. There's nothing coming in to rip it apart, so it has everything that it needs to rapidly intensify. Now we get to the good stuff. This is why everyone's freaking out about this storm. Right now, it's a Hurricane 1, 85 miles an hour at the eye wall. That's interesting. It goes Cat 2, Cat 3 within about a day, probably less, probably about 12, 18 hours. It's going to go from a hurricane to what we call a major hurricane, which is Cat 3 or higher, 150 miles an hour. But this is what has everybody going crazy. Cat 4 to land. It's not uncommon for hurricanes to flare up and have a good 12, 24 hours where they're maxing out and it's a major, really strong, dangerous hurricane over water. But it's really difficult for it to hold that shape and intensity all the way to landfall. It looks like that may happen. Let me show you a couple other things here as we zoom in. And again, this is part of the what we call the cone of uncertainty. What people don't realize is that this cone over the years has narrowed. Back in the day, it used to be pretty wide in the beginning. It's really narrow the first few days out. So we were really confident about all of this. Stretch it out 4 or 5 days, it widens out a little bit, and this is just telling you where the eye wall is going to go, somewhere within this, within a 95% confidence interval. If you like statistics, that's basically the big hump minus the tails. And then you get in here, and everyone from Miami to Jacksonville to even southern Georgia, to be honest with you, they could be looking at an eye wall landfall. But I don't care as much about that as I care about things that we know are going to happen. Florida's going to get hit. Florida's going to get hit with a big-time hurricane somewhere in the state. And then when you add in storm surge, the stronger the winds, the bigger the wall of water as it comes in with catastrophic flooding. That matters. That usually happens on the north side of this. So even if the eye wall's in Miami, if you're north of Miami, you're going to get a big storm surge. We worry about power outages. That really affects a lot of people, even far inland. And here's one other thing to think about. Let's just say it takes this southerly path, right? It can go right across Florida and blow up again in the Gulf. So people in New Orleans or people in the Gulf states like Panhandle, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, shoot, even Texas, they all need to watch this storm as well. So we are in the beginning stages. Again, it doesn't look like it's that big of a deal, but I think it's got everything working in its favor to be a big, strong, dangerous hurricane to make landfall in U.S. state within the coming days over a holiday weekend. That's why it's dominating the news, as it should.